Hey, the better rifle. Drop the gun! Oh, shit! I'm hit. I'm okay. But I'm not gonna die.
Welcome to Badges, Bullets, and Blunders, the show that tells funny cop stories from real people who live them. I'm your host, Travis Harless. Today's guest is my friend Eric South. Eric is a retired senior police officer who was an officer in California. Eric, thanks for coming out today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What did you do before you became an officer? How long were you an officer? And what were some of the assignments that you worked when you used to be a police officer?
So right out of high school, I joined the Marine Corps. I did 4 years there. I was a peacetime Marine, a couple deployments to Japan and one to Egypt and stuff like that. And then when I got out, I started testing all up and down the state.
What did you do in the Marine Corps?
I was 0311 infantry.
There we go.
Started testing up and down the state with different agencies. And it just so happened that the agency in my hometown is who called first, where I grew up. So I went to work for them. And I was there for just almost 6 years, just short of 6 years.
Okay. And then what assignments did you work when you were an officer?
Patrol and canine, and that was about it.
Yeah. Okay. And we'll get into your retirement here towards the end.
All right.
And so when was it that you retired?
2009.
Okay.
So late 2009. I think it was, I've got a plaque that tells you like damn near down to the hour when you retired, but I want to say it was October, November, somewhere in late 2009.
Yeah. Okay. And what have you been doing since you retired?
A couple of different things. So I went to work for Chevron in the oil fields, which is a big economic driver here where I live. And then from there, I went to work for a rental company. I worked for Sunbelt Rentals.
Okay. Yeah, I know it was just short of 6 years, but you packed a lot of experience.
I tried to be very active in my 6 years.
Yeah, we have a mutual friend who we've talked about on the show before named Kelly, and you were on a call once when something funny happened to Kelly.
Yeah, well, so it was listening to your podcast. It's actually kind of serendipitous that I'm sitting here.
Okay.
So an officer that we are mutual friends with, not Kelly, sent me a link to your podcast. And up until that, like I've read a couple of the articles you've written and I knew you were doing that, but I had no idea you were doing this. Well, he sent it to me and I was just getting ready to go and travel for work. So I was on the road for 2-3 days and I listened to all of your podcasts in one shot. Like it's literally the only thing I listened to for 48 to 72 hours.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
And during the course of listening to that, one of your previous guests, Bobby, was on here and he discussed his nickname for Kelly was Cherub.
Yeah.
And which I've heard that story before and it's never not funny to me.
He's got a beautiful little baby face.
He does. And so what's funny is Kelly and I were acquaintances prior to us both going to the academy in 2004. He worked at the gym I went to. We weren't friends. We weren't buddies or anything, but we'd say hi when we saw each other. Like we had a casual relationship. So anyway, we ended up landing at the academy together. And through the course of that, we got to be really good friends. So it wasn't short. It was very, very early in the academy when people start busting his balls about that angelic baby fucking face of his.
Yeah. And he was very young.
He was like not even barely made the cut. Yeah. He barely made the age requirement to join the academy. And he didn't even get hired. He paid his way. He paid his way through as a student.
So he's a 20-year-old kid with a baby face.
Yep. He turned 21 in the academy.
Yeah. Nice.
And well, in fact, he had the baby face when he was 40. Yeah. Like the baby face never went away. Yeah. It's just metrosexual as shit. And he's very. So, very early in the academy, people start busting his balls about this baby face. Well, Kelly and I have been friends a long time and the motherfucker's got a mirror. He knows, like I don't need to tell him. So I've never said anything about his face up until this point. So fast forward and I can't really remember where we were timeline wise in our career. But Kelly and I get dispatched to a domestic violence call in an apartment complex called the Willows. And, it's been a long time since I've worked the street, so I don't know what it's like now. But at the time, it was a problematic apartment complex. It was a high crime area.
Not a lot's changed.
Okay.
Mhm.
I didn't think
They
so,
changed
but
the name.
you never know.
They don't call it that anymore, but it's
It's got a new name now.
they changed the name every few years. They put a coat of paint on it, but
Yeah. So we go to this call, and as we're walking up, we can hear the commotion inside. So I pound on the door, and a gentleman answers the door, and behind him, I can see a female screaming down the hallway, and I can hear an adult male from somewhere down that hallway screaming back at her.
Yeah.
And so the guy that answers the door, I look at him and I said, "Hey, are you the one that called?" He doesn't say a word, just shakes his head no. So I start calling to the lady to see if I can pull her out. Well, I don't know if she can't hear me or if she's just ignoring me, because it is a dynamic argument. Like, they're screaming at the top of their lungs, and they're not even speaking English. It's just, "Fuck you, no, fuck you." So I holler at her a couple times, nothing. So this guy that's standing on the doorway, I said, "Hey man, do me a favor, take a step back." And so he does. He moves off that center line, and I step in, and as soon as I step in, Kelly steps in behind me. I didn't break that threshold for 3/4 of a fucking second, and I hear this commotion behind me. I can't tell what it is, but I turn around, and Kelly and this dude are in a no shit fist fight. And so this dude is throwing these windmill punches like this, and Kelly is as pretty and angelic as his face is. Kelly is a no shit athlete.
Yeah.
Like, he is just a ball of fast twitch muscle fibers.
Yeah. And quite a fighter as well.
Yeah, and so this dude is throwing these wild looping, not hitting anything, and Kelly's are real straight, and they're real fucking fast.
Yeah.
So have you ever seen those videos on YouTube where the cat will swat something about 7-8 times in a half a second?
Yeah.
That's what was happening. And so this dude keeps blinking. And Kelly's face, it looks like he had smelled something bad, like just covered in fucking indignance.
Yeah.
Like,
He looked really offended.
he was really upset. And so, I'm watching him touch this guy repeatedly in just a fraction of a second. I'm like, holy fuck, the kid's got cat hands.
Yeah.
So I got commotion going on behind me. I've got absolute chaos behind me. I've got chaos happening in front of me. And I was like, hey, I got to get the fuck out of here. So, and I'm taking that fucktard with me.
Yeah.
So, because the way they had started fighting, this dude had kind of bladed to me. So now his back's to me. So I come over and I just trap his arms in like a bear hug, pick him up and get out the door and move off the center line off to the side and get him to the ground. Well, Kelly follows me out, and we struggle with the guy for a little bit, and we finally get him in custody. We get him in hooks. And so I'm on one side and Kelly's on the other, and we get the hooks on him, and I look up, and as Kelly looks up, his perfect porcelain skin is just red welt the size of a softball. And I go, what the fuck happened? And Kelly, still being incredibly indignant, he goes, I don't fucking know. I walked in and he just fucking hit me. And so I told Kelly, and up until this point, like, I didn't really ever bust Kelly's balls about his face. And so I told Kelly, I said, it was that soft ass fucking chin of yours. He wanted to touch it. And so he did. And he's like, man, fuck you. And I can't remember what cause I did. I asked him, I was like, hey, why'd you sucker punch this copper over here? And I can't remember his answer, but it was delicious. Like, it was really good. Like, I actually called Kelly and asked him if he remembered, and he didn't remember either, but it was fucking funny.
He's got a real punchable face.
He does. He's got a punchable face. The sight of his face incites violence is what it is. Just soft.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What happened to the people inside?
I don't remember that.
Probably
I'm sure.
Only.
Yeah, like, because we had put out.
Probably just cleared.
Yeah, we had put out that there was a 148, and I remember Lance showing up and a couple other coppers getting there. I'm sure we dealt with them at some point.
Yeah.
But it's been probably
been
18, 19 years since that happened. So I don't know. I don't remember what we did with them.
Nice. So yeah, talk to me about showing you the money.
That's another one that listening to your podcast reminded me of. One of your previous guests, Jimmy.
Jim Ramos.
Jim Ramos. When I was brand new, he was the 4-car and I was the 5-car. And so,
which meant your zone of responsibilities
yes,
were right next to each
bordered each other. So really what it meant was I followed Jimmy around like a puppy, and he'd teach me shit, is what that boils down to.
You wrote his reports for him.
No, definitely didn't do that.
No.
But they would, with the newer guys, they would try to put you in an area that you were kind of surrounded by more experienced people to lean on, essentially. And so Jimmy and I are in a call in his area, and I can't remember what the call was, but we're just wrapping that call up. And 211 with a firearm comes out somewhere in the deep south part of town.
Yeah, so a robbery.
A robbery with a firearm, and you know, they're putting out that the cashier, the female cashier, has been pistol whipped, and I was like, oh shit. So I start fumbling for my keys, and I'm racing my car, and Jimmy goes, where are you going? I was like, I'm going to this call. And he stops, and he gets this like kind of perplexed look on his, like he's almost like he's trying to figure out a math problem. Mm-hmm. And he says in this real flat monotone, well, that's dumb. And I go, what do you mean that's dumb? He goes, go, fucking go, get. Mm-hmm. So I get in my car and I'm hauling ass, and it haunted me the entire way to the call. I'm like, that's dumb. What? Like, we're fucking policemen. Like, isn't this what we do? Like, isn't this our thing? So just prior to me arriving, officers that were on the call already, that were on the stop, became involved in an officer-involved shooting with one of the suspects. So right as I pull up, the other suspect had not come out of the car yet. He's in the back seat, and it was this like burgundy-colored Oldsmobile, and you know, everybody's out, and the lights are on, and the dog's barking, and they're hollering at this dude to get out of the car. Well, the back window's tinted, so we know he's in there, but we can't see what he's doing. Yeah. And so at some point, he gets real dynamic, and the car's kind of rocking back and forth, and he's screaming. So I don't know if it's just because the gig is up, the stress of it all. I don't know if it's because his co-conspirator is down in the grass next to the car. I don't know what his problem is, but he's screaming his ass off.
Yeah.
Uncompliant, won't come out. So Jeremy Blake and his dog were there, and Jeremy ultimately ends up sending the dog.
Yeah.
Dog engages the dude like right on his quad, like solid thigh bite. We get him out of the car. We end up getting him in custody. And then I get tasked with transporting him to the medical center, the hospital, the local hospital, get medically cleared. And then I'm supposed to take him back to the station and get him up in an interrogation room and just sit on him until all this stuff plays itself out. So I get him to KMC. We get him medically cleared. I get back to the station. I get him up in the interrogation room. Well, during that time, the other suspect had essentially succumbed to his wounds. So now it's a homicide investigation. So the
critical incident.
Everybody's rolling out. Ratcheted up. So they call me and they say, hey, get that dude down to the crime lab. And you know, they seize his clothes, they do the DNA swab, they do the gunshot residue, they do all the things. Mm-hmm. So our interrogation room was on the second floor. The crime lab is on the first floor. So I get him up and take him downstairs. And we go down there, and they while I'm standing there, they strip him down. They get the DNA swab, they do the gunshot residue, they do all the other stuff, and then when they seize the clothes, they give you this white paper jumpsuit kind of thing to wear, so you have something. So they put him in that, and then I take him back upstairs, and I get back in the interrogation room, and I sit him down, and you know, there's a little anchor point on the wall to handcuff him to. I hook him up to that, and I walk back out of the interrogation room and shut the door. Well, right there in the middle of the floor is a crumpled up $100 bill. And so I'm looking at it, and I'm like, where the fuck did that come from? It's 2-3 o'clock in the morning. The second floor of the police department is not very active. Yeah. And where the interrogation rooms were at that time, it was just a dead end hall. It's just not a high traffic area. Like nobody's coming through there. And I was like, I know for certain that wasn't there when we left. Where the fuck did that come from? So I start thinking about it. I'm like, I bet you he's got money in his ass. I bet you that's what he was doing in that car. Yeah. So I retrace my steps downstairs. Like I get the $100 bill, and I retrace my steps downstairs to the crime lab. It's the only $100 bill I find. Well, when I get down there, I happen to run into Paul. Paul, at the time, because I was still relatively new, I didn't really know Paul. And if you don't know Paul, he's a real stoic. Yeah. Some might even use the word abrasive if he doesn't know you. When you get to know Paul, he is the best fucking dude. He's funny. Like, he is a great dude. But when Paul doesn't know you, he doesn't have much time for you. He's just not super interested in
making new friends.
It's just not his strongest suit. Yeah. So, but he's the only copper I'm seeing, and I don't really know what to do. You know, this is a new thing for me. Yeah. And I was like, hey, I think this dude's got money in his ass. And Paul sighs. He's like, okay. And so I explained to him what happened. And then he's all right, let's go. So he's putting gloves on, and I'm like, oh yeah. So I put my gloves on, and I follow him upstairs. And we get up there, and we're getting ready to go in. And he goes, you didn't see him like clenching or anything, like holding anything? I was like, well, fuck, he's got holes in his quadricep. Like, it didn't strike me as odd that he was walking funny. Yeah. Like, you know, he's just hobbling around on this thing. And he's like, you didn't notice anything when they stripped him down and gave him the, I was like, nope. Like, I didn't see shit. I was like, when I put him in there, I come out and here's $100 bill. Here we are. He's like, all right. So we walk into the room and I ask the guy, hey, do me a favor, stand up. Which he does. Because I think at this point, like, he doesn't realize the gig is up. Like, I don't think he realized he dropped the $100 bill, nor that I found it.
Yeah.
So he stands up, and then I kind of position myself behind him, and I open up that paper suit, and he's got literally like a bouquet of $100 bills coming out of his ass crack. It's like a peacock, like it's pluming. But I'm all, oh my God. I go, yep, there's money in here.
Like a blooming onion of $100 bills.
Yeah, a blooming onion is the best way to describe that. So once he realizes I see that money, now he's trying to fucking fight. So like he's you know, he's hooked to the wall, so he can't do a whole lot, but he's trying to spin and he's kicking at me and this, that, and stuff and the other. And so Paul grabs a hold of his free wrist and kind of pulls him forward where he's bent over the table. Yeah. Like he's at waist high.
That's the veteran move.
The veteran move. Yeah.
I'm going to get the upper part, which leaves.
So I've got one leg pinned against the wall with my foot. And I'm trying to wishbone the other one to keep him from kicking me. Yeah. And I'm trying to get digging this paper suit. And Paul starts saying, digging his ass, get it out of his ass. He keeps, but if you know Paul, you know how seriously he's saying it. Like, he's not saying it like it's funny. He's saying it like, hurry up, get it out of his ass. And I'm like, I'm running my hand like a credit card swiper up this dude's ass crack, trying to get all this money out of there. So I finally feel like I've gotten all of it. That dude had $1,800 in between his ass cheeks. Wow. Yeah.
All the large bills?
All $100 bills.
Oh.
All $100 bills.
Nice and soggy.
Yeah. Oh, dude, they were covered in sweat and they were funky. It was the fucking worst. It was the worst night of my life. So fast forward to the next night. I show up, you know, at the time I was working midnights and you show up at 9 p.m. We're circling back to Jimmy and that's dumb. I get back. I come in at 9 o'clock and he goes, do you see why that's dumb? And I was like, yep, I see why that's dumb. And then, you know, he did. He was, and Jimmy was the fucking best. Like, I couldn't have asked for, you know, a better set of guys. Like, Jimmy wasn't the only one. Like, that first couple shifts of mine, like, I was surrounded by some really good people, and Jimmy just happened to be one of them. You know, he talked to me about how, like, hey, like, it's exactly what we're here to do. Like, we chase hot calls. He goes, but think about where you are and whether you're in striking distance of that call. He goes, Jimmy knew. The second I left, I was either going to miss the thing entirely or I was going to get stuck on some sort of non-exciting detail. You know what I mean? Some kind of bitch work.
Some sort of assignment that you don't want to have.
Yeah, the assignment I don't want. And then I was also, and he described like how I created a hole in my district that all the other East Side coppers had to fill for the rest of the night because I wanted to chase a hot call that I was nowhere close to being able to affect in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. So that's dumb. And so I still use that phrase. Where my kids tell me something, I go, that's dumb.
That's dumb.
But go ahead and do it. Like, that's dumb, but go ahead and do it.
Let me know how that works out tomorrow.
Yep.
Oh, man. So we got you some soggy hundreds. Some soggy C notes.
Yep. Soggy C notes.
Did I ever tell you about when I was a delivery driver?
No.
When I was in high school, I worked at one of our local Chinese food restaurants as a delivery driver. And I was 17. And I got an order to the Deja Vu. And, you know, I'm 17. I'd never been in a strip club. But in my mind, I have this image of what it's like in a strip club, which isn't the reality.
It's just not.
17-year-old image.
Yeah, it's incorrect.
Yeah. Well, this is the day that those hopes and dreams were shattered, right? So
when the cold, hard reality sets in.
Yeah, so I get this order. It's like fried rice or whatever. It was like $17 order. And the name on the ticket was Cinnamon, right? So I show up to the Deja Vu. I talked to the bouncer at the front, and he's like, okay, hold on, I'm going to go get her. And I'm all excited, getting ready to see Cinnamon.
I can't wait to see Cinnamon. It sounds exotic.
Well, Cinnamon shows up, and let's just say she was disappointing. Very, very disappointed. But on top of that, like, she had the smell of like like not showering for a few days,
Covered
covered
up
up
with
with that
Axe body spray kind of
that
thing, yeah.
cheap stripper perfume,
Yeah.
like kind of wafted off of her, and I was like, went from being excited to being like real grossed out, right? And so I hand her the bag. It's $17, right? So she hands me the cash, and it's $5 bill and 12 soggy singles.
Oh no!
Nice.
I'm like,
You're,
these
why are these wet?
Why are these moist?
Why are these wet?
Damn.
I was like, man, it just shattered my image of what the strip club was going to be like. I never went inside, but yeah. So, anyways, not as good as Soggy C Notes.
Soggy C notes.
Talk to us about the time, because you were a can handler, one time that your dog abandoned you.
So my dog had a deficiency, and the term that we used was called chewy.
Mm-hmm.
So in the most ideal scenarios, the dog will take a full deep mouth bite and just hold on
To it till you get there.
Yeah, and until you tell them to let go. My dog would tend to decide he didn't like what he had a hold of, and he would let go. And sometimes he would move locations. Sometimes he would go for me. Sometimes he'd go for another officer being died. He was chewy. And so, and I spent months working with him, because there's some exercises you can do to help them get better at that. And we got pretty good at working on it, but he'd still do it occasionally, but we'd kind of trained our way through that problem. Well, I was working an afternoon shift. It was daylight, which I don't remember working days, but maybe I was working overtime.
Yeah.
And a call comes out of carjacking, where the victim is a 60, 70-year-old lady, and she was unloading groceries.
Mm-hmm.
And the description is this mountain of a man had come over and picked her up, body slammed her, and then stole her car.
Mm-hmm.
And even when they put the description out, I was thinking like, 70-year-old lady, she's scared. Like, he's just not that big. Well, I happened to be in a position where I was right by one of the main thoroughfares that leave her neighborhood when that call came out. So they're really not even done putting the traffic out, and the vehicle was very distinct. So it was a 1970s blue Chevy long bed pickup with a trash can in the bed. Mm-hmm. And whoop, and as I pull up to the intersection, here he comes, and I can see big dude, blue Chevy truck, trash can in the bed. I'm like, got him.
Yeah.
So I put it out that I have the suspect vehicle and direction of travel and all that good stuff. Well, I pull into the intersection and I get behind it. I'm not really racing up on him yet. I haven't lit him up yet. Like I'm waiting to get some resources there. So if this thing goes sideways, I have help. Mm-hmm. So he catches a glimpse of me in the rear view, and he makes an immediate left turn into the next residential neighborhood, and he just pulls over to the side of the road and stops. So I pull in behind. I don't put my lights on, nothing. I just pull in behind him with a reasonable distance between the two of us, and he's just staring at me through his rearview mirror. Like, I'm looking at him. I see him, and he sees me, and he's got this wild-eyed. I was like, this dude is fucking Looney Tunes. Yeah. Like just his appearance, like he's really just kind of. Mm-hmm. And he's just sitting there, and I'm just sitting there. Like, nobody's doing anything. And then so finally he decides, like, oh, I'm going to go. So he does. He books it. So he floors it, and pursuit is on. I put it out, and then he's traveling through this neighborhood at a pretty high rate of speed, and he comes up to a T intersection. Like, he can only go left or right. Mm-hmm. Well, he goes to make the turn, but he's too fast. It locks up. He skids into the fence of a backyard, one of the residences, and it's got like a small brick retaining wall, and just smashes the truck into it. So he foot bails. I'm out of the car. Send my dog. Dog runs over, and dog catches him, gets a hold of him by the wrist, and I come running up at a dead sprint, and I throw the most perfect Superman punch I have ever thrown in my life. Mm-hmm. Like, it was perfect. Like, I felt a shockwave in my scapula. Yeah. I caught him right in the mouth. I mean, right in the mouth. And he just fucking ate it. Like, it was nothing. Like, no effect whatsoever. I don't know if you've ever hit somebody as hard as you could and it not have any effect at all. Yeah, but it is the most disheartening shit I have. Yeah. I almost fucking apologized to that fellow right there on the spot. I was like, hey, sir, I'm fucking sorry. Yeah. I shouldn't have done that.
Let's start over.
I fucked up. I'm sorry. It is. It's just a disconcerting feeling. Yeah. And he was a big dude. He wasn't super muscular, just fat, like tall and fat. Yeah. So I don't even know how I ended up getting him on the ground, but I did. And I'm fighting with him. So my dog has a hold of his wrist and it's kind of trapped that arm. Well, I'm trying to get a hold of the other one. And apparently my dog was 10 times stronger than me because he could not hit that wrist free, but I couldn't keep control of this arm to save my fucking life.
Mm.
So I'm constantly trying to get his arm back, get his arm back, get his arm back. And we're fighting and fighting and fighting. And so I'm on his back trying to fish this arm. And my dog lets go of his wrist. And with the chewy thing, my dog lets go of his wrist and he starts to go for the back of this dude's neck. And I'm like, oh, no, you fucking don't.
Yeah.
So I just kind of open hand swat him right on the nose, like not hard, just like, hey. And I went, no. And my dog cocked his head and looked at me. And then he grabs this dude's ball cap, shakes the shit out of it, and leaves. Like, just leaves. He's like, well, fuck you then. He starts going back to the car. Yeah. And I'm
You're on your own.
I'm on top of this monster. And
Good
I'm
luck with that, Dad.
I'm all, no. I need you. Get the fuck back over here.
I'm sorry.
So I'm calling him. Well, he does. He finally comes back. And he gets a hold of the suspect by the ankle.
Yeah.
That is the only thing that had any effect. That was the only thing that appeared to bother him was when the dog got him by the ankle. But now both his arms are free. And he, I'm not a small guy. Like I'm 6'1", 240. Mm-hmm. And he's doing push-ups with it. He's throwing me around. Like I cannot keep this dude under control. Well, officers start showing up on scene. And the first one that shows up is Chuck, who is a tank. If you don't know Sherman, he is like he was, back in the day, he was real into powerlifting. Mm-hmm. He's built like a refrigerator with fucking feet. Like he's just as thick as he is wide.
Yeah, 400-pound bench press.
Yeah, he's just a monster. Well, he's the first one through the gate, and he comes over and he grabs one of the guy's wrists because I've still kind of got him belly down on the ground, and he just hammer fists him right on the back of the shoulder. Wow. And dude just quits. Like, just took all the wind right out of his fucking sails with one. He just went boom. Yeah. And that was that. And we get him hooked up. So Sherman gets him up and's taking him back to the car. I get my dog, load him up. Well, anytime there's any sort of use of the dog, the handler has to go around and search for, because there's certain questions that we have to add, like, hey, did you hear the announcements? Like, did you see any of the engagement? How long did you think it was? And really the main reason for that is your mind, you're going to say the engagement was 2 seconds. Suspect's mind, he was going to say that took 2 fucking hours. Yeah. So you want kind of an unbiased, like somebody that's not actually involved in the fight and not actually getting bit to kind of help gauge what that time frame looks like. So I knock on the back door of the residence that this fight took place in, and the door opens and it's my general practitioner. He had been my doctor for like 5 years. And I asked him, I said, hey, did you hear my announcements? Did you see anything? Did you hear anything? He goes, no. He's all, I heard what I thought was a car wreck on the street. He goes, but they happen all the time around here. So like, I just didn't think anything of it. I was like, okay, thank you, sir. And so I go and I knock on a couple other doors and like, hey, did you guys see her here? Anyway, fast forward 6 months and I had to go to the doctor for something, for whatever. I don't remember what, but I show up at my doctor's office and I'm sitting in the room. And he opens the door. He goes, that was the craziest shit I have ever seen in my fucking life. And I was like, you saw it? He goes, yeah. I go, how come you didn't say anything? And my doctor was Hispanic. His name was Dr. Del Toro. And he was kind of like a machismo guy. Yeah. And he goes, dude, when police ask me, I don't see shit. And I was like, oh, fuck, my doctor was a vato back in the day. Like, what the fuck?
He ain't no snitch.
He's already no snitch. I didn't want to get involved in that bullshit. I didn't see shit.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
I was asleep.
I didn't see shit.
Nice. Talk to us about the time you jumped off a 2-story building. That sounds like a poor choice.
That was one of my. The problem is I thought it was going to be awesome, and it turned out to not be. You know what I mean? So. It was Dennis and Chris were a 2-man car, and they were great at finding fucking GTAs, stolen vehicles. They had a gift. Yeah. So they had picked up some GTA, and it was like, and everybody knew it was kind of a bullshit deal. It was the drug addict daughter stole mom's car, or something like that.
And then when you get the car back, mom doesn't really want
Yeah.
to
It was one of those kind of deals. Well, it's this Volvo station wagon, and it had the little baby onboard screens on all the back windows of the station wagon. Well, they put it out that they have it, and it's in the parking lot of this. There's this little fucking flea bag motel that is in the same, that shares a parking lot with a Mexican restaurant. And so in this parking lot is shaped like an L. Well, you know, by the time I got there, there was probably already 2 or 3 other officers that had shown up. And so they're all clogging this driveway. And so I just pull along the backside, and they've already got the driver out, and they've got, I think it was just the driver that they had gotten out at that point. And so the car still had a front seat passenger and 3 to 4 people in the back seat, but we really couldn't see through the screen. We could just tell there's people in there. So driver's out. They get her in custody. They throw her in the back of the car. Like when they're putting her in the back of the car is when I'm kind of running up. And so they get her secured, and then they go back and they start shouting at the other occupants to start coming out. Car rocks a little bit, and all of a sudden you just see this hand come out, grab that driver's side door, and punk. And as soon as I see that, I turn and run back to my car. Well, they take off. They come out of the other side of that L-shaped parking lot and then jet down the street. Well, they just happen to be going the same direction that my car is facing. So I'm going to be number 1 in the pursuit. And I'm like, yes. You know, I've got some distance to make up. So I'm on the gas trying to catch up. Well, they make the street that they're going down about 500 yards. It dead ends the same. It's T intersection. They can only go left or right. Well, they hang a right. So I lose sight of them for a second. Well, when I make that right, they're gone. I don't see the car. I don't see taillights, nothing. So I start slowing down, and I'm looking in these driveways that go up into these apartments, parking structures. And it's almost like they're all segregated. So it's parking structures, building, parking structures, building, parking structures. So about the 3rd or 4th one down, I can see that where they've crashed. And so, you know, there's some lag time there, but I'm not that far behind them. So as I pull up into that, I go, oh, got him. As I pull up into that driveway, there's a dude running to my right, and he has 3 rifles. Like he's holding them like a bear hug, and he's running, and he's like trying to chuck them under a car. There's another guy running this way, and then there's another guy that's got a lady, a female that was, I'm assuming was in the car. I don't remember, but he had a hold of her where they're turned facing me, and he's got a gun, and he's holding her in front. He's holding her essentially between me and him.
Sounds like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah, and I got stuck on fucking stupid. Like there was just so much happening. I didn't know what to deal with first. And so I'm like, holy fuck. And I'm looking at this dude and I'm like, is that a gun? And so I've got my pistol out and I'm shouting, but I catch movement from this guy over here and I'm like, oh shit. And I literally do this and then come back to this and he's gone. He let go of her and he's running down the breezeway for these apartments. So because I got so much going on, I don't chase him.
Yeah.
I start calling in units and put out what I have. I get a hold of this dude over here that dumped all the guns. I get him in custody. And then we, I don't know if we ever found that other dude. I'm sure we did. I don't remember. We get the female in custody. And then Jeremy shows up with his dog. And Jeremy was a relatively new handler at the time. So put the dog on a track. And Jeremy was a new handler at the time. However, Jeremy's dog, out of the box, was one of the best fucking dogs I've ever seen. Like just holy that dog was a fucking rock star. Could do everything well. So during the time, because I was a handler with Jeremy and a part of that canine team, that was just, I didn't come on until a little bit later after this. All the dogs were great, but they all had a deficiency of some sort. Jeremy's dog, nope. Yeah. Fucking rock star dog. But he was this little tiny Mal. Like even when the first time I saw him, I was like, that dog ain't going to stop shit. I don't understand. Like, where'd they get that fucking little lap dog from? Yeah. He couldn't have been more than 40 pounds, maybe 50 max. Like he was a small dog, but fucking rock star. Yeah. Anyway, he puts the dog on a track and dog starts going and going and it's pulling. I'm walking with Jeremy. And we go down this breezeway and we cut over through this grass area into the next set of complexes. And as we're walking up, there's a guy. He comes out. He's just a civilian. He walks out of an apartment door. and he's walking down the breezeway to the next door, which is wide open. And I'm like, hey, did you see anybody come through here? And he's like, nope. And I was all, do you live here? He goes, yeah, this is my apartment right here. I go, okay, do me a favor, go inside and stay there until somebody comes and gets you. He's like, all right, cool. So he goes in, I hear him shut the door and lock it. Well, where his door is, just to the right of that, he was the end unit. So there was a grass area with a 6-foot wood slat fence, and each one of these units had a little tiny backyard. Well, Jeremy's dog won't leave this corner. Like, he's just in the corner, and there's obviously some sort of scent pool there, and the dog's got the brain the size of a fucking peanut. He can't lie. If he tells you dude's right here somewhere. Yeah. So we open up the gate, and then his dog's just not interested in going in the backyard. Like, nope, that's not the way he went. He's in here somewhere, and he is. He's going from essentially where the sidewalk for the front door is to that corner of the gate in the building. Well, right there's a ladder that leads up to this 2-story apartment complex. So there's units on the bottom and there's units on the top with a catwalk. So we're looking at it, and Jeremy and I are it. There's nobody else with us. Everybody else all the other resources are off doing other things with this fucking clown show of a call that we have going. So we're looking at this ladder, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go up there and see if he's up there. Jeremy's like, yep. So and this ladder it's pretty tall. Like, I had to jump to get a hold of it and kind of shimmy my way up there. And then I climb up there, and then I kind of crest the roof, and there's just AC units down the whole way, and they're on both sides. So it's, sets of 2 of these big AC units. And in that moment, I'm like, I'm going to get fucking shot.
Right.
It's probably as because I had time to think about it. It was probably the most afraid as a copper I had ever been.
Yeah.
Because I'm by myself. This dude has cover and concealment with these AC units, and I got to try and fish his ass. Like, I was legitimately like sweating my balls off. Like, it actually scared me.
Yeah.
So I start slowly and systematically trying to clear behind these units. Well, while I'm doing that, all of a sudden from down below, I hear Jeremy yelling, and I'm like, oh shit. And I look over the side, and there's Jeremy and his dog running, and the suspect is running down that breezeway. So the way the breezeways were set up, there was a concrete retaining wall in between that next set of complexes. So, I mean, it's an alley that's literally like 1 person wide, maybe 2.
Yeah.
And so Jeremy sends his dog's after suspect. Well, I'm paralleling them on the roof. Like, I'm running with them. And, Jeremy's got this little tiny dog. They're going to they need me. They need my help. Like, that little tiny dog ain't gonna do shit. Like, Jeremy's down there by himself with that little tiny fucking dog. I need to get down there.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that there is a ladder at the other end that mirrors the one I came up.
That would be up to code, probably.
You would think.
So an apartment complex in the hood, probably not up to code, I'm guessing.
I'm sprinting along this roof line, and I'm watching them. And Jeremy's dog catches him just past the building. And down they go. They're in the grass. So I run over to this thing, and Jeremy's, like, show me your hands, this, that, and the other. And I get to the other side, and there's no fucking ladder. And I'm like, fuck. So I'm up above them, and I'm looking down, and the fight is happening right in front of me. But they're 20 feet below me.
Yeah.
So I decide, all right, I'm going to jump.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump.
I'm going to send it.
And I'm going to fucking send it. But and this is how fucking stupid I was in my early 20s.
Aim for the bushes.
In my mind. In my mind, this is a fucking true story. In my mind, I'm going to jump. I know I can't stick the landing. It's too tall. I'm going to combat roll into a samurai baton strike. I'm going to reach distinction at the department in this one fucking move. Yeah. You watch. So I do. I jump. I fucking send it. And I fell long enough that I went, oh, fuck. Like, when you can fall long enough to where you go, oh, no. Yeah. Oh, no. I realized I had fucked up. But at that point, gravity is steering the bus. I have no control over this. So I decide I'm going to stick with the first part of my plan. And so I do. I let my knees just give, and I go into a fucking combat roll. Well, the momentum of me going fucking forward, I slammed so fucking hard that it knocked every ounce of wind right out of my lungs. Oh, yeah. Like, it knocked the wind right out of me. And I am laying right next to our suspect. So his shoulder is here, my shoulder is here. And I'm trying to hit him with my baton like this. And Jeremy stops yelling commands and looks at me and he goes, "What the fuck are you doing?" I'm helping. I'm fucking
I'm
helping.
doing my part.
I'm here to save the day.
So we get him hooked up, and it was then that I realized that they didn't need my help at all. That dog didn't need any fucking help from me. Anyway, the next night when I show up, and the bottom of my fucking feet hurt for 6 days. Like I was fucking miserable for days, miserable. So the next day I show up to briefing, and my sergeant at the time was Renee, and I walk in and he goes, "Hey there, Superman." Yeah, fucking whatever. His youngest daughter calls me Superman to this day.
Yeah.
Like to this day, she goes, "Hey, Superman." I was like, "I don't like that fucking nickname."
That's funny. Yeah. And they didn't even need your help after all.
Not even a little bit. Not even like when I saw what that dog did, I was like, "Oh, that was foolish on my part."
Destroyed your knees and back.
Yeah,
and
they didn't need me one bit. That little tiny dog will fucking get the fuck down.
Nice. Yeah, well, speaking of dogs, so you were a handler and you were involved in an officer-involved shooting. You and your dog were involved in an incident, and that's what ended up leading to your retirement. Can you talk to us about that?
Absolutely,
that incident?
sure.
Yeah.
So I was working overtime, and I was working with our gang unit, and I had my dog with me, and I can't remember what we were looking for this dude for, but he was significant enough that we were allowed to ping his phone.
Mm-hmm.
We had a judge sign off to ping his phone.
And this is back, just for reference, back before that was of common practice. That was like a big deal.
Yeah,
way back
that
then.
was a big deal. Like you really had to have something for a judge to sign off on the bill. And even then, I don't know what it's like now, but when you ping a phone, you'd get like a half-mile radius of like, "Hey, they're in here somewhere."
It's in the city.
Yeah, it's in the city.
He's in town.
Yeah, he's in town. Well, at least the phone is here.
Yeah, the phone's in town.
So we get this ping and we decide like, all right, let's go down to this neighborhood and shake the bushes and see what quail fly out. So we go down there, and sure enough, we end up finding him just by happenstance. And Chase is on, he's hitting fences, and we get a perimeter set up, and my dog and I start doing a yard to yard. Well, we find him he was like in one of those little tiny fucking tool sheds.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it was just big enough for him. Dog alerts on it, and I'm like, and I can't remember what the call was, but I was like, "Hey, I'm not going to send my dog in that tiny little fucking thing with potentially an armed suspect. Like let's get the doors open, and because I've got tons of resources, there's tons of coppers there." So we get the door open, and almost immediately he tries to run. The fight is on, and then there's no just for whatever reason I just decided this didn't send my dog at all, didn't engage. So coppers are wrestling with this thing, but it's super dynamic, and my dog is getting super amped up, and he's spinning and snot, and they get worked up pretty easy. Well, we get dude in custody. I take the dog back to my car, get him loaded up. Well, and then I hear we had an officer at the time. Back then, we had an officer who it was an actual station at the mall.
Yeah.
Like it was an actual job, and it was Randy.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear Randy put out over the radio that he just had a petty theft from, and I guess I could back up. Where I'm standing, I'm not very far from where the mall is.
Mm-hmm.
He puts out that he's got a petty theft from Merlot's Cutlery. Somebody went in there and stole a knife.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a shit. That's just not what I'm there to do.
Not high in the
it's just not
prime priority
Yeah,
list.
it's just not a super big priority. I'm like, somebody stole a knife. Well, then Ferris puts out that he's in pursuit of the suspect. But I can tell by Ferris's voice, he's not chasing him on foot. He's chasing him in his car.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, do I care? Still no.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not for me. Well, then it's quickly transitions to where now I can hear that Ferris is running and chasing the suspect. And he's like, "Hey, the suspect is saying that we're going to have to kill him." And I was like, shit. Okay, now maybe I care. Yeah. I was like, all right, let's get over there and see what we can do to help Ferris out. And even on the way there, my thought process is, hey, I'm going to get there and I'm going to pull the dog out of the car and I'm going to go, "Hey, you better straighten the fuck up or I'm going to send this dog," and then get a surrender out of the deal. Because there's a whole lot of things that he's a petty theft suspect.
Yeah.
That's not, that doesn't meet the criteria for a dog deployment. He's armed. which we try not to send our dog on armed suspects if we can avoid it, because
Yeah.
they're just going to kill your dog, and then you're back to square one minus your dog.
Yeah.
And two, he is, the California Penal Code for resisting arrest is 148. The term we used for this type of thing back then is called a running 148. Like, is he resisting arrest? Yes. But he's not hurting anybody. He's not physically assaulting anybody. He's just trying to get away.
Yeah.
That negates a dog deployment. So I've got 3 things that the dog is a no-go. So I'm literally on my way there just to bluff. I'm going to bluff. And I'm going to pull the dog out and I'll be like, hey, you better fucking act right. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of times where that works. There's times where it doesn't, but there's a lot of times where they go, I'm not real interested in fucking with that dog.
I don't want to get bit by a dog.
Yeah, for a lot of times it works. So I'm hauling ass northbound up Castro, which essentially dead ends into the southern parking lot of this mall. And as I'm going up, as I hit the last residential street, before it hits the parking lot, I catch a glimpse of Ferris. And I kind of slow down. I can't see bad guy, but I can tell Ferris does. He's got this kind of linebacker, kind of herky-jerky stance. And so I'm assuming dude is up in this carport somewhere where I can't see him. So originally I start to commit to Ferris, and then I realized I was like, we don't have anybody fucking north of us. Let's get a perimeter first and get this dude to go to ground, and then we'll fucking deal with him. So I do a donut right there in the intersection and get back out and go into the plaza parking lot. Well, there's a concrete wall that separates that parking lot from that residential neighborhood to the south. Well, as I'm passing that, I catch a glimpse of him. It was a flash of blue going over the wall. I was like, oh, I got you now. Like, you're in a big open parking lot. I'm still mobile in the car. Like, you now belong to me, sir.
Yeah.
So I come around the corner, and there he is. He's beating feet westbound. And he's still kind of up against that wall, but he's running westbound towards where the movie theater is in that parking lot. Well, I drive over some parking pylons to get to him, which makes a ruckus, and he turns around and he sees me and he stops. Well, where he stops, that wall, so it's continuing westbound, but it also has this it's created a corner where there's, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 feet of wall that's going north and south, and then it continues east and west. So he's in this corner when he stops. And so I pull up, and I maybe stop 30 yards from him, 20 yards from him. And I hop out, and this is how fast I think it's going to be. I don't even put the leash on my dog. I literally just grab him by the collar, and I'm going to go, hey, motherfucker. And then he's going to go, oh, shit, no thanks. And I'm going to put the dog away, and we're done. So I grab my dog by the collar, and I get him out, and I'm walking forward and my dog is walking on 2 legs. And he is, because he's still super amped from the last call. And then, even when you drive around code with the dog in the car, they understand what that means. And like, he is out of his fucking mind at this point. Like, he's really amped up. And I'm like, this is going to work. Because he's actually scaring me a little. I'm like, God damn.
Somebody
like,
get
he's
this
got
dog.
snot bubbles blowing up. Like, I was like, oh, shit. So I start yelling at this guy. And I'm yelling out commands to drop the knife, get on the ground, this, that, and the, I'm going to send the dog. And he drops down into this squat position, and he's on the balls of his feet. And when they said knife, I just pictured, like, I don't know, a steak knife. Like, what the fuck did he steal? He had a big old Rambo silent sentry fucking killer knife. He's got that in his hand, and he drops down in the squat position on the balls of his feet, and he starts like rocking back and forth, and he's got his chin down, and he's looking at me through the top of like his fucking eyebrows.
Yeah.
Everything about him, his body language, his facial expression was like, oh shit, like, this dude's going to swing for the fucking fences. Like, everything about him screamed like, hey, this ain't going to go easy.
Yeah.
Promise.
Yeah.
Call timeout on the story. I knew that we had officers over there. I had nothing to connect him to it, but we had detectives working a homicide at an apartment complex that's relatively close. Like, you could call it walking distance, but it'd be a trek.
Yeah.
But it was close enough, but like, there was nothing to connect him to that. Where our suspect, who had broken into, I can't remember if he broke in or if the dude knew him. That part is irrelevant. He was in some paraplegic's apartment, and he stabbed him 97 fucking times.
Oh, wow.
He broke knife blades in him. He like used 7-8 different knives. Well, this is our guy. This is our suspect for that homicide.
He's got the look on his face like someone who would stab you 97 times.
Yeah, he does. He does, as a matter of fact. So he commits this murder. He takes a shower, steals some of the guy's clothes, and then gets on the bus and rides it over to the plaza because he's got to steal a new knife. All his are ruined. Yeah. Because he stabbed this dude a whole bunch of fucking times and broke him. So in that, the reason I back up and point that out is because he and I are not on the same plane. We're not even playing the same fucking sport. Yeah. Like I'm like, hey, petty theft suspect. Yeah. And this dude's running from a vicious murder rap. Like we are not playing the same sport, but I can see that in him. Like I can't identify it, but I'm like, ooh, that's different. Yeah. Like he's different.
He's acting like he did something besides steal a $100 knife.
Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the things with this mall is they had fantastic video. Yeah. Like the video system they had there was fantastic. And this was something that I didn't realize until later when I saw the video. Hindsight being 2020, it was the wrong decision and potentially maybe even a training issue. From the time I got out of the car till the time it was over, I never stopped going towards him. I never stopped pressing that action. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what he would have done, but watching that video later, because I didn't even realize I had done it until later.
Well, in the heat of the moment, you do weird stuff that you don't realize until you look back.
I've always wondered what would have happened if I'd have just stopped and took a beat. And, you know, because we had other guys coming. There was other units en route. Like, I should have just stopped. Yeah. But I was just constantly taking the fight to him. Constantly. From start to finish, I never stopped pressing the action, which I now that I'm older, I'm like, you fucking dummy. Anyway, so I'm still yelling commands, but I'm edging on to him. Well, I know that he cannot, because, when he jumped the wall from the residential side, it's like 10 feet on that side, 8 feet. Well, it's like 15, 20 feet on it. He can't get back over it. Yeah. So he can't go south. He can't go east. He sure as fuck ain't coming north to me. The only way he has to go is west. And I know he's going to do it. So now my plan A was to bluff him and get him to surrender. Plan B is now, no matter what he does, I'm just going to stick with him and go, there he is. There he is. There he is. Until I can get other people there and we can figure out what we're going to fucking do with him. Yeah. So sure enough, he does. He finally breaks west. And as soon as he does it, I look up and I can see a handful of the mall unarmed security guards coming, and they're essentially cutting off that avenue of escape for him. They're trying to help.
I'm here to help.
They are. They're there to help. Yeah. But I want to say there was 3, maybe 4 of them, and they're like on a no shit skirmish line coming at him eastbound, coming towards him.
So the unarmed guys are coming towards the guy that just
100%
with the knife that just murdered someone.
And I know for a fact he will fucking gut one of them to get out of there. Like I know it in my fucking bones. So my next plan is I decide I'm going to dump him. Like, this is it. I'm going to fucking dump him. So I come out of the holster and I'm literally starting to put the front sight in the center of his back. And then it's funny how much you think of, and this is all happening fast, but I'm like, how am I going to go to Fresno in front of a jury and say, hey, I shot this petty theft suspect in the fucking back because he did this jerky thing that fucking scared me. Like, how do you articulate that? Yeah. And I was like, okay, so plan C is no good. We're on to plan B. I'm going to send the dog. And I'm going to be hot on that dog's ass. And as soon as the dog hits him, I'm going to knock his head clean the fuck off his shoulders and put him out. Because we had done that sort of thing before, with the exception of the big dude that stole the truck. It normally worked. So I let go of the dog and send him. And he is so amped up. He's almost like Roadrunner. Like, he's running, but not going anywhere. Just his nails on concrete, like, sa, 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 sa. Well, he finally gets some fucking traction and off he goes. He's all, Zoo!
It's like Fred Flintstone.
Yeah. And this fucking dude sees the dog coming, transitions the knife from his right hand to his left hand, and then presents his fucking arm. I have never seen any shit like that ever. Like, usually when you send the dog, like, you let go and the dog starts coming, you can watch in their face, their brain go into fucking neutral. They're just like, what the fuck? Like, it's a wild animal. You're like, holy shit. So when he did that, I was like, I've got a massive fucking problem.
Yeah, he's got a plan.
This dude is going to fucking kill my dog. Yeah. Right here, right now. So I pick up the pace a little bit and I'm running behind my dog. And as soon as my dog hits him, I throw the most vicious forearm rip I have ever thrown I left my fucking feet.
Mhm.
Like I was like, I have one shot at this. I have to put him out. So I throw this fucking thing and he's looking at the dog and he just kind of glances up at me and slips it. Like he just goes, shoot. I went right over, like literally my fucking center line went across the back of his shoulders.
Mhm.
And my forearm hit that concrete wall, which is really one of the only things that fucking saved me because it hit me, stopped me, and I landed on my feet. And when that happened, I was like, he's going to fucking cut you. Be ready for it. Like he's going to cut you. Like here it comes. So he turns and faces me and he has a 90-pound anchor attached to his arm. And he turns and faces, I grab a hold of his jersey and I suck him into me and I try to catch him again with another elbow and he just fucking slips it. Like he made me feel like I was moving in slow motion.
Yeah.
Because he slipped it with no fucking, and he's got a fucking dog attached to him. And he's slipping the shit I'm throwing at him like it's not even, like he's like, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
So I fake like I'm going to throw a third one. And when he flinched, I grab a hold of his noggin and I kneed him in the face. It was the only time I caught him solid during the whole thing. So I've got his head below his hips. He's got a mouthful of knee and he's got a dog attached to his arm. So he just swings that knife up blind and he's hoping to hit pay dirt. Well, he catches me right in the right forearm. On a pain scale of 1 to 10, it felt like a 2.
Yeah.
It felt like nothing. It honestly, it felt like somebody had popped me with a taser. Like there was kind of an electrical pulse to it.
Mm.
But luckily I had already decided like, hey, you're going to get cut. Like be ready for it. It's the only reason I recognized what it was because it didn't feel like much of anything.
Yeah.
Like it just didn't hurt that bad. And I was like, oh shit, that was it. So I hip toss him to the ground and I back up to get some distance, go to guns. And as I'm coming back in my mind, I am pressing off shots and nothing is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because the video at that mall is so good. Later watching it, I was indexed the entire, like my finger never made it inside the trigger guard, but in my brain, I'm pressing shots and just nothing's happening. So I think there's a malfunction. I think it's the gun.
Yeah. Gun's broke.
The gun's broke. So I go to do a little tap rack bang action. Well, as I rotate the gun over, I can see that my entire fucking arm and hand are drenched. And I'm holding the gun like a baby fucking bird, like a little baby claw.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh shit, I'm the fucking problem, not the gun.
Gun's good, hands not.
Hands not. So I transition to my left hand and I press off 4 shots, which ultimately ends up ending it. Well, at the time I'm coming in on him, he's stabbing my dog in the face because he realizes I'm getting ready to fucking kill him. Yeah. And so he starts stabbing the dog in the face because he's got to get back to his feet. Mm. So he starts stabbing the dog. He stabbed him 3 or 4 times. I can't remember. It was 3 or 4. Anyways, I start getting closer. He transitions, and obviously it's just, he's identifying the threat. Like he wasn't going to be able to do anything, but he took the knife and pointed it at me.
Yeah.
So first shot goes off, and what I thought was an impact on his shoulder was the first shot, because you focus on the fucking threat. I shot at the knife. Yeah. Like not really thinking about it, but impacted him in the wrist and exited his shoulder. And I was like, hey, why did I fucking see that? I was a front sight press, stupid. Front sight press, and do not hit your fucking dog. Yeah. So then I kind of, I had that brief hiccup, and then I snapped in and really started putting good, clean shots on him.
Left-handed.
Left-handed.
Yeah.
And that ended it. Like they went into his face. It just took the whole back of his noggin off.
Yeah. That'll do it.
So when he's down now, I'm trying to figure out. So I realized that my problem's over. Like I can take a breath.
It sounds like it's just beginning.
Yeah. So I stand there and I'm trying to figure out how to get my gun in the holster with my left hand. And I'm like, fucking shit. Well, so finally I just decided I just put my gun on the fucking deck and I put my foot on it. Yeah. And I lift, because I haven't seen it yet. I don't know. And by the pain scale, I'm going to get a Scooby-Doo Band-Aid and be 10-8 before the end of the day. Yeah. Like that's really what I think. I lift my arm up. I could have put my fucking fist in the hole that was in my arm. Yeah. It was wild. Yeah. And later in the photos, because they had me like kind of pronate it so they could get photos of it. It looked like if my arm would have been any smaller, he'd have cut the fucking thing off. Yeah. Like it was a huge gaping hole. So in the video, you see me ground the gun, put my foot on it, and I lift this thing up to look at it, and I'm like, holy fuck. I immediately take a knee.
Yeah.
And I'm just staring at this thing like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Well, while I'm doing that, my dog is dragging the carcass back to the car. He's all, I don't know what that loud popping sound was, but I killed this one. I'm keeping it. Like, I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
Taking this one with his dad?
I look up and I see him like doing this number back to the car. And I'm like, hey, you are fucking up my crime scene, sir. So I go over there and I get a hold of
Tell him to stop it again.
I go over there and I get a hold of him by the collar. And I say his name, which is, you know, you always say the dog's name is kind of a preparatory command, like, hey, I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
And I'm getting ready to out him. Well, he knows it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I say his name, and then I'm taking that breath to say out, and he starts, and he'd never done this before, and he's never done it after. He bared down and started screeching. Like he was not interested in fucking letting go of this dude at all. He's like, this motherfucker stabbed me in the fucking face. Like, this ain't over.
Yeah.
I got a bone to pick with this fucking dude. So I give him a couple out commands and he's just not happy. I'm like, hey, because normally he was really good at it. You tell him to fucking let go of something, he'd let go.
Yeah.
So I end up, and I've got, people are starting to get on station now. Other coppers are showing up. Like things are happening. So I ended up just hacky sack kind of kicking him in the teeth, like, let go. And he does. And then we turn around getting ready to take him back to the car. Well, I can see officers running up, and I put my hand up and I'm like, stop. I go, I have an incredibly hot dog and I don't know that I can control him with one hand.
Yeah.
And I was being serious because he was on a different level today.
Yeah.
He was wound.
He was already wound up when you got there, and now he's
was on a different
level.
And so I was telling everybody, like, hey, back up, let me put him away, and then we'll get everything rolling. Well, again, this fantastic video that this plaza has. While I'm doing that, you can see my dog. He looks at me. He looks at me. He looks at me. And then he bites this dude on the quad, on the thigh, and starts shaking him. And so this dude's laying on the ground like, fuck. I'm like, what? Well, when I walk off, I didn't even notice he had done it.
Yeah.
I walk off, he lets go, he comes with me. I get him to the car, and it looked like somebody dumped a bucket of blood on him.
Yeah. I
don't know if it's his, I don't know if it's mine, I don't know if it's dude's. So I'm running my fingers kind of through his fur, trying to see if I can find any other holes, because the wounds that he had on his face were relatively superficial. Yeah. Like, they were just cuts.
Cuts, yeah.
They like the stitches for sure, but like they didn't seem like anything threatening.
Yeah.
So I'm running my fingers through his fur, trying to figure out if I can find holes. And at that time, a fireman came up and he's like, hey, dude, you need to sit down. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm fine. Like, just let me see what's happening with my dog. And then right then, I almost fucking went out. Like, I was like, ooh, shit. I was like, ooh, maybe you're fucking right.
Yeah.
So they end up just packing that thing full of gauze and wrapping it up and getting me up to the hospital. And luckily, there was a lady at the hospital that they took me to. There was a lady from San Francisco who was there to teach a class about exactly this, like nerve reconstruction, because he got my motor and my sensory nerves, 2 tendon bundles, and both flexors. So everything that makes your hand work, he got.
Yeah.
Like, she wasn't real sure. She's like, I don't even know how you got the gun out of the fucking holster, to be honest with you. And I was like, I don't fucking either, but who knows? The good Lord has sorted that out for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess what I was told is that typically what would happen is they would clean it up, they would sew it up, and then whenever I could get in to see that lady 6 to 8 weeks later, whatever that was, she would go in there, open it back up, and tear out the hornet's nest of scar tissue and try to make sense of it all. But luckily, she just happened to be there, and they're like, hey, we got this dinged up fucking copper down here. You willing to? She's like, yep, get him up. I was in surgery within 6 hours probably.
Wow.
Yeah. So it really worked.
We'll teach the class right here.
Yeah, right here, right now. Let's do this.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, with my dog's negligent discharge, later they were running the IA and the homicide investigation concurrently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the detectives came over and they're like, hey, did you shoot this dude in the leg? And I was like, what? They go, did you shoot him in the leg? And I was like, no. And at this point, I hadn't seen the video. I didn't know my dog bit him.
Yeah.
I was like, no. They're like, he's got an odd puncture wound in his thigh that we can't identify it. And I was like, I have no idea. Well, then later when I went for the IA interview and I'm watching the video, I was like, that dirty son of a bitch.
Yeah.
So.
Caught you when you weren't looking?
Yep.
Yeah, that's funny.
Hey, he was big mad.
He was big mad.
Yeah.
He was in fucking raged. I'd never seen him like that.
He bit you or not bit you. He stabbed you and stabbed him.
Yeah.
From his perspective.
Yeah, he was probably real mad about him getting stabbed more than me. I was like, yeah, fuck that dude.
So what were the long term like on the? So what was the?
You know, it's so now. Big stuff is easy, little stuff is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I find a quarter on the ground, I got to kick that motherfucker home because I can't pick it up. And like if you see me out, like if you see me and my wife out, like on a night out where I'm dressed up nice, if I'm wearing like a long sleeve button up shirt, I have my sleeves cuffed. That's not to look cool, motherfucker. It's because I cannot button that fucking button right here. Like I cannot do it.
Yeah.
So, but like, you know, to grab stuff and manipulate things, it's fine. I actually went back to work 6 months to the day from the stabbing. And then I worked another 2 years. And then I broke the same arm fighting with a GTA suspect over off of Panama and 99. And I went to catch him with another elbow. As another elbow incident. I went to catch him with an elbow and he saw it coming. He turtled up. And so instead of catching him on the chin with this part of my elbow, I caught him on top of the skull. Like right, it sounded like somebody stepped on plywood. Like it was all yak. And Jeremy Blakemore at the time, he goes, "Hey, you got to stop fucking throwing those things."
Yeah.
Like you just keep getting, I was like, motherfucker, it works. Sometimes 60% of the time it works every time. Like,
come up with a new move.
In your hand.
Yeah. And so, I was in a cast for a while. And then when, you know, and the hand was kind of shit already. Like I went from, pretty consistently being a first page shooter. Like I typically would land somewhere in the 95s to 99s was where I would typically land. That gap between 99 and 100, I could never cover. Like that is an insurmountable gap to me.
It's tough.
Like, dude, it is the worst. Like I could do 3 99s in a row and just can't seem to cover that. But anyway, when I came back to work, I was in the mid 80s. Like I'd qualify, but it was rough. Like it was rough. Anyway, when I got that cast put on and I was, you know, essentially the hand was stagnant for the next 6 to 8 weeks. When I got that cast off and they sent me to the, you know, the fitness for duty test, the city doctor was like, yeah, nah, dude, you're done here. And then they sent me down to a hand specialist in LA and like, he wasn't in that room 3 fucking minutes. He's like, bye.
Yeah.
Here's your shit. See you later.
Yeah. Yeah, that's too bad. So what about the dog? What was the long term?
They allowed me to keep him.
What was his injuries though? Because you said you were
that
checking that
motherfucker got like 3 stitches and some antibiotics. He was fine. Well, nothing wrong with him. But they did. They and he did. They actually did be really solid.
Yeah.
That because he had quite a bit of service life. Because when I got him, he was only 4. He was a baby.
Yeah, pretty young.
He was young. He still had a few years of service life on him.
So then when you retired, they retired the dog as well.
Yeah. So I purchased him from the city for $1. And at the time, Renee Chow and Joe Bianco were the ones in charge of the canine unit. Or no, I take that back. They had since moved on, but they were who was in charge when I first got picked up to handle a dog. They went to bat.
Yeah.
So that I could hold on to him.
Yeah.
So they did me pretty solid.
That's good. How was he with like home life, kids and stuff?
You know, at first I didn't realize I had to give him a job because he made one up and it was a ditch digger. And I was not a fucking fan. But it was after a couple, it was probably maybe the first or second year he was home and he got a little longer in the tooth. Like after that, the only thing he chased was fucking shade. Like he later on, he got fat. Like he's a fat ass. But he was a good dog. And luckily I had, the type of dog that he never lost that kind of puppy. Like he was always real happy and bouncing around. Like when you told him to, he'd bite like a fucking lion. Yeah. But as soon as if he engaged you and I mean, just really got after you, the second it was over, you could pet him. And he'd be like, thanks, dude. Yeah. Like he was just a happy-go-lucky kind of dog. Like I didn't have to worry about him too much. That's good. So yeah, he was an awesome house dog. It just took a minute for him to kind of hit a lower gear.
Nice. Yeah, he was like a retirement at first.
No,
Yeah.
no, he didn't.
That's good. Cool. All right. Well, Eric, thanks for coming out and talking to us. We really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and stay frosty.
Sweet. Dude, that hour flew by.
Yeah.
That flies by.